The desert was endless, a wide ocean of red sand under two suns. For years explorers had crossed this place, but most turned back, tired and empty-handed. The desert was dry, silent, and without mercy. Yet deep beneath the surface, something was. Waiting, hidden for millions of years. A human research team arrived at this forgotten planet. Their ship was old, small, and nothing compared to the great alien vessels parked near the horizon. The aliens were laughing. They had been here for decades. They had studied the desert, scanned the ground, and drilled the surface. They had found nothing but stone, dust, and dead winds. But one day, the ground trembled. A storm opened part of the desert floor, and from the broken land appeared a black surface, smooth like glass and shaped like a giant wall. The aliens gathered, shouting in many voices. For the first time they had found something real. The humans watched quietly. They were not the first here. They were not the strongest, but they were patient. They studied every movement, every line on the black wall, and then they saw it. The center was not flat. The center had a strange mark. Not a door, not a window, but something different. It looked almost alive. A perfect circle sealed shut. The aliens called it the orifice. No one knew what it was. Some said it was an entrance to a city. Others whispered it was a prison. But all agreed on one thing. It was impossible to open. The strongest claws, the hottest flames, the sharpest plasma blades all failed. The orifice stayed closed, silent and mocking. The human leader, Captain Arlen, stood with his crew and watched. He had gray eyes, calm and cold. He spoke very little, but he saw everything. His people trusted him. They had traveled light years, far from Earth, and now they stood before the greatest mystery of their time. At night the orifice glowed faintly. Lines of silver light moved across the black surface, but only for a moment. Then the glow died. The aliens tried to record it, but nothing stayed on their devices. It was as if the wall did not want to be remembered. It was alive in its own way. One alien commander, a tall insectoid, declared loudly, "This orifice belongs to us. We found it first. We will break it open." But months passed, and years, and nothing changed. The orifice stayed sealed. The desert swallowed their machines. The suns burned their camps. One by one they abandoned the place. But the humans remained, small, weak, but determined. The young scientist, Mira, studied the wall day and night. She touched the smooth surface with her gloved hand. It was cold, too cold for a thing standing under two suns. She took notes, drew sketches, compared the patterns. The symbols looked random to the aliens. But Myra thought different. They looked like a code, a lock waiting for the right key. The people of Earth had always been called fragile. They had weaker bodies, shorter lives, and fewer ships. But they had one weapon that others underestimated: curiosity. Where others grew bored, humans grew. Hungry for answers, where others gave up, humans continued. That was why Myra kept working when the desert nights froze and the days boiled. She believed the orifice was not just a wall. It was a test, and the test was waiting for someone special. One evening, a storm came again. Lightning cut across the red sky. Sand rose in great waves. The camp shook. The aliens hid inside their ships, but Myra and Captain Arlen stayed outside. Through the storm they saw it, the orifice glowing brighter than ever before. Symbols moved across its surface like veins of fire, and in the center, the sealed circle pulsed like a beating heart. Myra whispered, "It is alive, it is calling." Captain Arlen's eyes narrowed. "Then it is calling for us," he said. The storm ended as suddenly as it had begun. Silence returned. The orifice turned dark again, but the humans knew now. Something inside was awake. Something was waiting. And somehow, only they had heard the call. From that night, everything changed. The desert was no longer empty. The aliens no longer laughed. And the humans no longer felt small. They were standing before a door that no weapon could open. But maybe, just maybe, a human hand could. The orifice stood in silence. It was a black circle on the giant wall, perfect and smooth. It looked simple. But every explorer who came near it felt fear, as if the wall itself was watching, waiting, judging. The first to try were the insectoid commanders. They were proud and strong. Their claws could cut stone. They placed their best warriors in front of the orifice. One warrior pressed his claw deep against the seal. For a moment, the surface rippled like water, and a shockwave burst out. The warrior fell back screaming. His claw melted like wax. The orifice was untouched. The aliens roared in anger. They sent more. They attacked with fire. Flamethrowers hissed, filling the air with smoke. But when the smoke cleared, the wall was cool. And black again. Not even a burn mark remained. Then came the reptilian engineers. They brought massive drills from their homeworld. Machines taller than houses, powered by nuclear cores. The drills bit into the ground, shaking the desert. The machines roared. Sandstorms rose. At the moment the drills touched the wall, they shattered like glass. The engineers wept, for their proudest machines had broken like toys. Rumors spread across the camps. The orifice was not only strong, it was clever. It could sense when something tried to break it. It punished those who dared. Some whispered it was alive. Others whispered it was cursed. One alien leader, a tall creature with crystal skin, claimed it was a sacred place. He bowed before it, offering gifts of light and rare stones. For a moment, the wall glowed. The symbols across its surface shone like stars. But when the alien reached out his shining hand, the glow turned red. A sharp blast of energy threw him across the sand. His crystal body cracked. He lived, but he never spoke again. The orifice rejected them all. No strength, no technology. No worship could open it. Years passed. Generations of explorers came and went. The desert swallowed their camps. The suns burned their hope. Still the orifice remained sealed. Some aliens said it was mocking them. Others said it was waiting, yet curiosity was stronger than fear. More ships came, more attempts were made. The avian scholars brought sonic weapons. They sang in high voices, shaking the desert air. They tried to match the hum of the orifice. But the wall remained silent. And when their song reached its highest pitch, the air exploded. The singers lost their voices forever. The orifice stayed closed. The silicon giants brought hammers of pure plasma. They struck for days and nights. Each strike shook the planet. Mountains cracked, valleys formed, but when the dust cleared, the hammers were broken, and the orifice was still sealed, smooth as ever, as if no strike had ever touched it. The failures began to change the explorers. They grew restless, angry, and afraid. They turned against each other. Some said the orifice should be destroyed. Others said it should be worshipped. Fights broke out. Camps burned. Blood stained the red sand. The desert that had once been silent now echoed with screams. Through it all, the humans watched. They had no giant drills, no sonic weapons, no plasma hammers. They were weak compared to the others, but they were patient. And patience was something the others lacked. Mira, the human scientist, kept her eyes on the glowing lines that moved across the wall. She saw patterns no one else noticed. They looked like veins, carrying light instead of blood. She recorded every flicker, every shimmer, and slowly she began to see a rhythm. The wall was breathing, not like a machine, but like a living being. The aliens mocked the humans. They laughed at their small ship, their weak tools, their fragile bodies. Leave. The insectoid commander said, "This place is beyond you." But Captain Arlen only stared at the wall with cold gray eyes. "We are not leaving," he answered. His voice was calm, but behind it was steel. One night, after another failed attempt by the reptilians, the desert was filled with silence again. The other camps slept, tired and broken, but Myra stood awake, staring at the orifice. The moonlight fell across its surface, and for the first time, she saw something new. The center of the seal pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat in the dark. It was weak, but it was there. She whispered, "It is waiting." But for whom? She did not know. Days turned into months. Still the orifice remained sealed. The aliens began to leave one by one. They were tired of wasting years on a door that would not open. But the humans stayed, for they had nothing greater than this mystery. And in their hearts, they felt that the orifice was not random. It was not rejecting all life. It was rejecting all except one. Captain Arlen stood before the wall one evening. His crew gathered. Behind him, the desert wind was cold, carrying whispers. The orifice glowed faintly. The symbols flickered like stars trapped in stone. "Others have failed," he said, "but we will not." The humans were different. Not the strongest, not the oldest, not the richest, but they were stubborn. And sometimes stubbornness was more powerful than any weapon. The orifice waited in silence. But deep inside, something stirred, something ancient, something alive, and it was listening. The human ship looked small under the two suns. Its hull was old. Its engines were tired. Its paint was faded. But inside the ship, the crew was awake, calm, and ready. They did not come to win a race. They came to solve a puzzle. Captain Arlen stepped onto the red sand and tasted dust in the air. He felt the desert heat press on his skin like a heavy hand. He looked at the black wall and the sealed orifice in the center. His gray eyes did not blink. His breath was slow and steady. Mara followed with her field kit. She walked like a student in a quiet library. Careful and focused, her eyes moved across the glowing lines on the wall. She whispered notes to herself. Simple words, clear steps. She believed the wall was not a door, but a living test. The rest of the crew built a small camp. Juno, the engineer, checked the power cells and repaired drones. Tomas the medic set up a clean tent with water and cooling packs. Hari the linguist put up a sound rig to capture tiny hums. Lena the xenobiologist placed sensors in the sand to feel hidden waves. Cade the pilot watched the sky and kept the ship ready. Around them the alien camps were large and proud. Tall towers of metal, flags of strange colors. Guards with bright armor. Some aliens stared with cold eyes. Some laughed. Some ignored the humans. The insectoid commander clicked his mandibles and said the humans were late. The reptilian engineers hissed that the humans would only slow things down. The crystal elder said the wall was holy and humans were not worthy. Arlen did not argue. He only drew a thin line in the sand around the human camp. He spoke to his crew in a quiet voice. "We do not fight. We do not shout. We do not show fear." He said, "We watch. We wait. We learn." That night, the desert. Wind fell to a whisper. The two moons rose and turned the sand into a silver sea. Mira stood close to the wall, only one step away. The orifice gave a faint pulse under the moonlight, like a weak heartbeat. Hari's sound rig caught a low hum under the ground, almost too soft to hear. Lena's sensors showed tiny waves moving in a slow rhythm. Juno checked the numbers twice and shook her head. "This is not machine noise," she said. "This is something else." The next morning, the humans began simple tests. They did not bring flames or drills. They brought patience. Mira held a small light and moved it over the wall. The wall stayed dark, but the orifice gave a soft ripple. She changed the light to a warmer shade. The ripple grew. She changed it to a cooler shade. The ripple faded. The orifice liked warmth. It liked life. Hari spoke in short tones, just one sound at a time. He tried low notes, then high notes, then gentle notes. The wall did not answer, but the hum under the ground moved closer. He tried simple human words. Hello, open, friend, safe. The wall stayed quiet. The hum held its breath. Arlen stepped forward and placed his gloved hand near the seal. Nothing happened, The wall was dead glass under a hot sun. He pulled off his glove and breathed out slowly. His bare palm hovered one finger from the seal. A whisper of warmth touched his skin. The sealed circle gave one soft pulse and then went still. Hari gasped. Juno looked up. Mira did not blink. They had never seen the wall respond to touch. "Not like that. Do not force it," Arlen said. He did not press. He did not rush. He only stood there. The orifice gave another weak pulse, as if waking from sleep. Then it went cold again. Like a heart afraid to beat, Arlen stepped back, his face calm, his eyes sharp. "It knows we are here," he said. That evening, each human tried the same test. One by one, Tamas, Lena, Juno, Hari, Kad. Each felt a breath of warmth near the seal. Each saw a tiny pulse, small as a blink. No alien. Who watched believed what they were seeing. Some were angry, some were afraid, some were silent. The insectoid commander ordered his guards to move closer. The reptilian engineers took notes with shaking hands. The crystal elder bowed his head and muttered old prayers. Sabotage came in the night. A cable at the human camp burned with a quiet spark. A water tank leaked into the sand, leaving a dark mark like a wound. Juno fixed the cable. Tomas saved the water. Arlen said nothing to the other camps. He only posted Cade and Hari on watch and told the crew to rest in turns. "Let fear waste their energy, not ours," he said. Mira did not sleep. She sat by the wall with a dim lamp and a small pen. She drew the thin lines she saw on the surface. They looked like a river map at first, and like living veins. But when she stepped back, she saw something else. The lines formed a simple pattern, 2 strands, crossing and crossing again. She had seen that shape in old Earth books. It looked like a ladder made of light. It looked like the shape of human life. Her hand shook. Her breath went fast. She called Lena. They compared notes. They checked the shapes with simple math. Simple steps, no guess. The pattern was not exact, but it was close. Too close to ignore. The wall was built by something that understood the shape of human life, or the wall had learned it over time. Either way, the meaning was heavy. In the morning, the crew shared a quiet meal. No one spoke much. The air was thick with thought. Arlen listened to each report, then looked at the orifice. "It reacts to skin, to warmth, to simple rhythm," he said. "It does not like force. It does not like pride." He looked at the other camps, the drills, the flags, the bright armor. He saw fear hiding behind power. He saw anger hiding behind loud words. He turned back to the wall, which looked silent and simple. "It is not a door to break," he said. "It is a wound to heal." As the sun climbed high, the air trembled over the sand. Hari asked to try a different test. He did not use words. This time, he used a tune from old Earth, just a simple human melody, slow and kind. He hummed the tune and placed his hand near the seal. The hum under the ground answered with a faint echo. Not the same notes, but the same feeling. Mira felt the hair on her arms rise. Lena blinked back tears she did not expect. Juno looked away so no one would see her surprise. The wall was not a machine. It was a listener. That night the humans dreamed the same dream. Each of them stood inside a dark tunnel, narrow and smooth. A pale light moved ahead like a small star. They followed the light to a round chamber, empty and calm. A voice without words touched their minds with a simple idea. Not a command, not a warning, not a threat. Just this: come gently. They woke before dawn and found they had all seen it. No one wanted to say the word miracle. No one wanted to say the word trap. They only looked at each other and knew the next step. The aliens were restless when the sun rose. They had heard the human song. They had seen the tiny pulses. Some shouted that the wall belonged to all. Some warned that the humans were waking a great danger. The insectoid commander lifted a long weapon and said the time for patience was over. The reptilian chief wanted to blow the wall with deep charges. The crystal elder begged them to stop and listen. Arlen walked to the line in the sand and raised his hand. "We will try one careful approach," he said. "Just one at dawn, with witnesses from all camps." He spoke with no anger, no heat, just clear words. "If the wall does not answer, we will step back. If the wall does answer, we will not force it. We will move at the speed of trust." The phrase confused some aliens and calmed others. In the end they agreed, not because they trusted, but because they wanted to see. They wanted to prove the humans wrong, or to claim the prize if the humans were right. Either way, all eyes turned to the orifice. Before the attempt, Mira placed small markers on the ground, simple stones in a coned circle, a human shape in the center. She asked Arlen to stand there and rest his hand over the seal without touching. She asked Hari to hum the simple tune, soft and steady. She asked Tomas to watch the pulse and count the beats. She asked Juno to keep the power low and the machines quiet. She asked Lena to watch the sensors for a rise in living waves. She asked Cade to keep the ship ready for escape. Just in case, the desert went still. Even the wind held its breath. 2 suns sat on the rim of the sky like eyes half closed. Arlen stepped into the circle, slow and sure. He lifted his hand and held it near the seal. No force, no push, no pride, only presence. Hari began the tune, soft as a cradle song. One note, then the next, then the next. A rhythm like walking, like breathing, like a calm heart. The orifice gave a tiny pulse, then another. The pulse matched the tune, slow and patient. Lena whispered the count. Tomas marked the beats. Juno's screen showed the hum rising from deep under the sand. Mira watched with wide eyes and wet lashes. She saw the faint lines on the wall light up in a gentle flow. They did not blaze, they did not burn. They only woke, as if a sleeping mind opened one eye and wished to trust. The insectoid commander gripped his weapon, but did not fire. The reptilian chief leaned forward and bit his lip until it bled. The crystal elder fell to his knees and held his shining hands together. The desert watched with all its old silence. Arlen did not move. He kept his hand still and his heart steady. He felt the warmth at the edge of his skin. He felt the wall like a living cheek against his palm. He felt the orifice breathe once, then hold the breath inside. He did not force the breath to come again. He only waited. He only listened. The hum under the ground swelled like a tide, and then fell. The lines on the wall glowed and then dimmed. The seal in the center gave one long soft pulse. It felt like a yes and like a no at the same time, a promise and a warning in one quiet beat. Mira lowered her lamp and whispered with a shaking voice. "It knows him," she said. "It knows us." Arlen lowered his hand and stepped back from the circle. He did not smile. He did not claim a win. He looked at the wall with respect, like a student before a teacher. He nodded once, a small bow from a stubborn man. "We will not rush," he said. "We will ask, and we will wait for its answer." The sun slid lower. The air cooled. The sand turned purple in the long light. The alien camps whispered and argued and made quiet plans. Some wanted to steal the human method. Some wanted to end it with fire. The humans checked their gear, drank water, and sat together in the shade of their old ship. They spoke of small things, hands around metal cups, eyes on the red horizon. They were tired and afraid and hopeful all at once. When the first stars appeared, the wall gave one last faint glow. Just a ring of light around the seal, like a slow blinking eye. It held for a breath, then faded into night. Mira closed her eyes and heard the simple tune in her head. Lena felt the soft waves in the sand fade to calm. Hari wrote 3 words in his book with a dull pencil. "Come back gently. Arlen stood alone. For a moment, and watched the dark shape of the wall. He felt the weight of choice press on his shoulders. He knew the next step would change everything. For humans, for aliens, for whatever slept behind that seal. He turned to his crew and spoke in a voice the wind could not break. "Dawn," he said. "We try again at dawn." Dawn came slowly to the desert. The two suns climbed the horizon. Like burning eyes opening one after the other, the sky turned from violet to red, from red to gold. The sand shimmered like an ocean of fire. The alien camp stirred with restless noise, but the human camp was silent. The crew gathered near the wall, their faces hard but calm. They knew this day would not be ordinary. Captain Arlen stood in front of the orifice. His gray eyes reflected the weak glow of the sealed circle. He did not speak much, but his silence carried more weight than shouts. Mira was beside him, holding her notes, her hands shaking slightly. She whispered, "The pattern is alive. It reacts to warmth, rhythm, and trust." Arlen nodded once. "Then today we give it all three," he said. Hari began to tune his instrument. It was not alien technology. Only a simple human device with strings. He struck the first note gently, and the sound floated through the hot air. It was soft, steady, like the beating of a slow heart. The desert seemed to hold its breath. Even the restless aliens grew quiet. Arlen lifted his bare hand again. He did not press the seal. He only hovered close. The warmth returned immediately. Not burning, not sharp, only gentle, like a soft breath on skin. The sealed circle pulsed faintly, then pulsed again. For the first time, the rhythm matched Hari's tune. The wall was listening. The humans stayed still. Every movement was careful. Every breath controlled. Myra's eyes followed the glowing lines that spread outward from the seal. At first they flickered weakly. Then they began to flow like rivers of light. The orifice was waking. It was not an object. It was a presence. The aliens leaned forward. Some in awe, some in anger. The insectoid commander clutched his weapon, his mandibles clicking fast. The reptilian chief licked his teeth and hissed. The crystal elder pressed his shining hands together in prayer. None of them understood why the wall responded to humans, but all of them knew they were watching something they had never seen before. Suddenly the hum under the ground grew louder. It vibrated through the sand. It shook the stones. The sound. Rigs almost broke under the pressure. Hari's melody trembled, but he did not stop. He played through the shaking, each note clear. The wall answered with pulses that grew stronger and stronger. The orifice was no longer a sealed wound. It was a beating heart. Then it happened. A crack of light formed at the edge of the sealed circle. It spread slowly, painfully, like lips opening after centuries of silence. The air grew heavy. The desert wind turned cold. Everyone watching felt the weight of something ancient pressing down. Mira whispered, "It's opening." But the joy in her voice was mixed with fear, because the glow was not calm anymore. It was wild, angry, like a storm hidden in a cage. The crack widened. A sharp hiss came from the gap. It was not just air escaping. It was something else. A sound that was not a sound. A whisper that touched the mind and froze the heart. Lena stumbled back, clutching her head. Damas grabbed her arm and pulled her away. The crew looked shaken, but they did not run. They held their ground, because Arlen's hand was still steady. And as long as their captain did not move, neither would they. The orifice opened wider. Inside was no tunnel yet, only a blackness deeper than night. From that blackness came shapes of light, not figures, not words, only shifting patterns. They moved like smoke and flame at the same time. And yet, every watcher felt those shapes looking back at them. The aliens cried out. Some fell to their knees. The insectoid commander barked orders, but his voice shook. The reptilian engineers covered their eyes. The crystal elder whispered old songs. None of them had ever seen the orifice respond this way. None of them had ever seen it bleed. Light, Arlen finally spoke. his voice calm but firm. "Enough," he said. He lowered his hand slowly. The music from Hari stopped. The hum under the ground began to fade. The light inside the crack dimmed. The seal pulsed one last time, then froze. The orifice closed. With a soft sigh, the desert returned to silence. For a long moment, no one moved. The only sound was the wind over the sand. And Mara said quietly, "It let us open it." "But it does not trust us yet." Arlen nodded, his face unreadable. "It showed us enough," he said. "Now we know it can be opened, but only with care." But before relief could settle, a deep rumble shook the ground. The sand around the wall cracked. The glowing lines spread further, racing across the surface like fire. For one terrifying moment, it looked as if the entire desert might split apart. The alien camps panicked. Shouts and screams filled the air. Machines roared to life. Weapons were raised. But then, just as suddenly, the rumble stopped. The lines faded back into stillness. The orifice closed again, as if nothing had happened. The crew stood in silence. Their hearts raced. Sweat poured down their faces, but in their eyes there was fire. Because they had touched the edge of the impossible. They had seen the orifice respond. They had felt it breathe. The aliens gathered in heated council that night. Some demanded the humans be removed. Others wanted to use the humans as tools. A few whispered in fear that the wall had chosen them and none else. The humans did not join the council. They sat in their small camp, tired but calm. They ate simple rations and shared no boasts. They only spoke of what came next. Mira's hands still shook as she sketched the new symbols that had appeared. Lena studied the faint waveforms recorded during the attempt. Hari polished his instrument, his face pale, but his eyes burning. Juno checked the drones twice, though. She knew they would not help against whatever lived in the wall. Thomas wrapped Lena's arm where the shock had burned her. Cade watched the stars, his hand resting on his pistol. Captain Arlen said only one sentence before he went to rest. "We opened it once," he said. "We will open it again." That night, each human dreamed again, but this dream was darker. They were not in a tunnel anymore. They were standing in a vast chamber filled with cold water. Shapes moved under the surface, too large to see fully. A voice without words pressed into their minds again. This time, it did not say, "Come gently." It said something else. "Come carefully," or "Do not come at all." They woke at the same time, breathless and cold. The desert outside was silent, but the air felt heavy. The orifice was still closed. But the humans knew would not stay that way forever. They had awakened something ancient, something that now watched them as much as they watched. And in the far distance, beyond the desert, other ships were already coming, drawn by the light, by the whispers, by the promise of what lay inside. The race was no longer about who could find the wall. The race was about who could open it and survive. Dawn touched the red dunes like a slow fire. The two suns climbed above the line of sand, steady and cold. The wall waited with its sealed circle dim and quiet. The human crew stood in a half ring, breathing slow, heart steady. Myra checked her simple notes with shaking fingers. Hari ran one hand along the strings of his small instrument. Lena watched the sensor stones that slept in the sand. Thomas tightened the straps on his pack and whispered a short prayer from Earth. Juno and Cade stayed by the ship and kept the lines clear. Captain Arlen looked at the orifice as a student looks at a teacher. With respect and courage, the alien camp stayed back, but not far. The insectoid commander stood with armed guards, tense and sharp. The reptilian chief flexed his claws and spoke in low hisses. The crystal elder bowed his shining head and asked for mercy from old stars. No one trusted anyone, but everyone wanted to see. Arlen lifted his bare hand and held it near the seal. Hari hummed the simple tune, calm and soft like night rain. The hum beneath the ground rose like a tide. Warmth gathered in the air, as if the desert itself began to breathe. The sealed circle pulsed once, then twice, then many times in a careful rhythm. Mira counted, Tomas counted, Lena counted, their voices low and even. A thin crack of light formed along the edge of the circle. It did not break. It unfurled, slow and living, like an eyelid opening after a long sleep. The light was gentle but deep, a glow that touched skin and thought. Sand trembled as the black surface shifted. A narrow opening appeared, not tall, not wide, but enough for a human to pass. The alien stepped forward at once. Arlen raised his hand without anger, only with weight. Witness from each camp stays. Outside, he said, humans will enter first, and only a short way. The words were simple and hard to argue. Fear and pride fought on many faces. At last the leaders nodded, not from trust, but from need. They needed someone to step into the dark, and only the humans could. Mira went first with a lamp the size of her palm. Arlen followed at one pace, Thomas behind him. Lena and Hari next. The opening was tight and smooth, cool like stone and warm. Like skin, the air smelled faintly of rain, though the desert had none. The walls held a soft living sheen, like the inside of a shell. Every step they took sent a small ripple through the surface. Every breath they drew echoed as if the tunnel listened and learned. Symbols woke along the passage as their bodies moved. Thin lines rose from the dark like silver veins. They curved and crossed in patterns that felt almost familiar. Mira raised her lamp and saw the shape she had sketched in the night. A double strand weaving like a ladder of light. Not perfect, not earth, but near enough to make her chest ache. Lena touched the wall with the back of her knuckles. Gentle as a nurse, the light brightened, as if it liked the kindness in the touch. The tunnel narrowed, then widened without a seam. It shaped itself to human height and human reach. It bent where a human arm would bend. It stepped where a human foot would step. Arlen slowed the pace and let the place breathe with them. Hari kept the tune soft, no words, only trust. The glow in the walls matched his rhythm beat by beat. They reached a small chamber like a throat in a living thing. In the center stood a low ring grown from the floor. It was smooth and dark, with a faint blue heart inside. Mira held her lamp over it and saw tiny ridges spiraling inward. A lock that was not a machine, a lock that was a body. Lena breathed out and spoke in a voice like warm water. "This is not a device to push," she said. "This is a place that only opens to a shape that fits." Arlen lifted his hand, then paused. He looked at his crew. He looked at the ring. He looked at the walls that pulsed like a slow tide. He placed his palm above the ring, not touching, only near. The blue heart flickered, weak and curious. Hari changed one note, softer than a whisper. The ring warmed, the spiral eased. Inner edge relaxed. Mira's eyes shone. Tomas held his breath. Lena set a hand on the wall to steady the rhythm. A quiet voice without words brushed their thoughts. Not speech, not sound, only meaning. Welcome and warning in the same soft wave. Come gently, and remember the dead. The lamp trembled in Mira's hand. She turned the beam to the left side of the chamber. Bones lay in a shallow curve under the wall like pale moons. Not human bones, not one kind of bone. Many kinds, long frames, short frames, ribs like ladders, skulls like prisms. Some were old and dry as dust. Some were clean and silvered as if washed by light. Tomas knelt and bowed. His head, though, no prayer could cover this. "These are the ones who tried," he said. "They made it this far, and then no further." The chamber grew colder, though the glow did not fade. Mira studied the positions of the remains. Each lay near the ring, each reached toward the spiral. Marks on the floor showed effort and surrender. Lena saw thin hairline cracks in the wall, like healed scars. She whispered that the place remembered pain. Arlen looked at the ring with a soldier's calm and a child's honesty. "This is not a prize," he said. This is a threshold that kills pride. They did not touch the bones. They did not move them. They took only knowledge and silence. Mira drew a simple diagram, a ring, a spiral, a set of pulses. Hari recorded the rhythm that made the blue heart warm. Lena set a small sensor stone. Near the ring, it rested like a patient seed and drank the waves in the air. Tomas marked the path back with thin chalk, because fear knows the value of return. A second passage opened without a sound, not forward, not back, but sideways. It showed itself as a line of dim light along a scene they had not seen. Arlen lifted his hand to stop the others. He listened, they all listened, even their breath. Paused, the meaning came again like a tide over the sand. Not words, only shape, only feeling. Learn before you take. They moved into the side passage with slow feet and open hands. The air turned cooler and sweet like old rain caught in stone. The walls here were covered with tiny points of light, not lines, not veins, not ladders, points, as if someone had trapped a field of stars under dark glass. Mira recognized maps in the scatter, not maps of roads, but maps of skies. She traced one cluster with her finger and saw a path between stars. Lena named a known system in a whisper, then another, then a third. But many patterns were unknown to any chart they carried. The points swelled and drew together into pictures of memory. They saw a world of white towers. They saw beings made of light and bone. They saw pride. They saw fear. They saw a door closing to stop a storm. They saw the spiral seal created with grief and hope. They saw messengers sent to many stars to find a hand that fit the living lock. They saw failure, rage, and return. They saw bones laid down in patience when force could not win. They saw a last message burned into the foundation of the wall. If you open without wisdom, you free a hunger. If you open with wisdom, you free a healer. Tomas wiped his eyes with the back of his wrist. He had seen war turn cures into weapons. Arlen stood as if the ground itself might judge him. Hari's tune faltered and then grew steady again. Mira felt the picture settle into her bones like a quiet oath. Lena touched her heart, and the wall answered with one soft pulse. They returned to the throat chamber and the ring. The blue heart waited, not cold now, not hot, only ready. Arlen held his hand above it and did not press. He let his pulse settle into a slow human beat. Hari matched it with a simple melody. Mira counted aloud so fear could not lie about the time. Lena breathed in fours so the walls could feel a gentle rhythm. Tomas stood behind them, all with open hands and an open face. The spiral widened one turn. The inner edge relaxed like a mouth, letting go of a hard word. A soft edge rose to meet Arlen's palm. It was not a blade, not a needle, not a trap. It was a living reader, warm and careful. A single pinprick kissed his skin and drew one drop of blood. The drop did not fall. It lifted and hung like a tiny red moon in the blue light. The chamber waited, the walls waited, the bones waited, the crew waited. Meaning came again, clearer now. Pair found, measure accepted, proceed with care. Mira's breath left her like a bird leaving a hand. She saw the double strand brighten along the walls. Not just shape, now also song. 2 notes, 2 lines, weaving and answering. Human life was not the only key, but human life was the missing half to this lock. The ring lowered into the floor. A round door in the far wall unfolded like a slow flower. Air moved past them, cool and damp, carrying the scent of old water and iron. A narrow tunnel sloped downward, lit by veins of blue and silver. The ground felt softer here, like a path walked by many feet and then forgotten. Arlen looked back along the way they had come. He saw the slim line of daylight at the first opening. Beyond it, far and small, the shadow of waiting aliens. He nodded once to the memory of choice and stepped forward. The tunnel bent left and then right as if to hide what lay ahead. Whispers of light moved along the walls, like schools of small fish. Hari kept the tune low so the air would not break. Lena watched the readings on her simple band and saw their heartbeats match the flow of the place. Mira marked the turns with small chalk lines and felt foolish, because the tunnel itself seemed to remember better than any mark. Yet fear loves small work, and small work keeps courage from cracking. They reached a second chamber larger than the first. Here the ceiling curved high, and the floor dipped around a dark pool. The pool did not ripple, yet it was not still. Shapes swam under the surface, too far to name and too near to ignore. A low tone rose from the water and touched their teeth. Not pain, but not comfort. The walls brightened with lines that formed a circle around the pool. Words without letters passed through them. Do not enter water. Do not feed water. Do not wake what sleeps in water. Tomas took one careful step back. Lena's hands stayed at her sides, where panic could not make them reach. Mira turned her lamp away from the pool, so light would not invite. Arlen looked at the far side of the chamber and found a thin bridge grown from the floor. It arched over the dark like a single rib. No railing, no seam, just a bone of stone. He tested it with his boot. It gave a little and then held. They crossed. One by one, slow as prayer. The tone in the water rose and fell, as if a thing in a deep dream turned once and settled again. Beyond the pool, a narrow hall opened into a third space. This one was small and spare, a heart inside the heart. In the center stood a column with a hollow shaped like a human hand. Not any hand, not a perfect mold, only a soft impression. An invitation, a test, a promise, a threat. Arlen stopped at the threshold, because some lines should not be crossed without a full breath. He looked at Myra. He looked at Lena. He looked at Hari and Tomas. He saw fear. He saw faith. He saw the same quiet fire in each face. Mira spoke first, simple and clear. "We know a little, not enough," she said. "This place heals or harms depending on the heart that opens it," Lena added in a low voice. "The bones remind us of cost." Hari plucked one string, and the room answered with a tone that matched his note. Thomas smiled without joy, only with courage. "Captain, the choice is yours, but none of us will let you make it alone." Arlen stepped forward and placed his palm over the hollow. He did not press. He did not beg. He did not command. He gave the room his warmth and his steady beat. He gave the room the truth of a man who had seen war and still chose gentleness. The column warmed, and the hollow rose to meet him. Light climbed his arm like quiet fire that did not burn. The double strand along the walls brightened and began to turn like a slow wheel. The hum beneath the ground grew strong, and then stronger. Outside, the alien camps felt the tremor in the sand and cried out. The insectoid commander raised his weapon. The reptilian chief shouted for charges. The crystal elder fell to his knees and wept bright tears that cut lines in the dust. The black wall, lit from within like a storm behind glass. The sealed circle at the surface pulsed a warning ring that even the proud could read. Stay back or be broken. Inside, the column spoke again without words. Pair complete. Gate 1 open, Gate 2 pending, risk extreme, proceed only if you carry. No hunger. Arlen's jaw tightened, not in anger, in memory. He remembered orders that cost lives. He remembered mercy that saved enemies. He let those memories sit in the open where the room could see. The light around his hand softened. The wheel of strands turned another slow quarter. Myra's lamp flickered and then steadied, as if the place itself did not want to frighten her. Lena's band drew a strong, clean wave from the air. Hari's tune became a whisper inside the hum, and rode it like a leaf on a river. Tomas whispered the names of the dead they had seen, so the room would know they did not forget. A low crack sounded behind the walls, not breaking, not failure, only an ancient hinge remembering its task. A thin seam opened in the far curve of the chamber. Cold air rushed in with the smell of deep stone and long water. The lights dimmed to a steady dusk, the kind of light that asks for trust. Arlen lifted his hand away from the column. The light let him go without paying, and left a small clean circle on his palm like a moonprint. The seam widened just enough to show a darkness that was not empty. Something waited past that line. Not a monster, not a friend, only a presence too. Large for a name. Mira swallowed, Lena breathed, Hari listened. Thomas nodded once. Arlen spoke in a voice the room could carry without harm. "We will not run, and we will not rush," he said. "We will come gently." The scene held, the air hummed. The pool behind them slept. The bones in the first chamber lay quiet and watched with the patience of stone. Outside, the suns climbed, and the desert sharpened. Weapons clicked, councils broke, pride burned, fear grew. Inside, the humans stood at the lip of the second gate with open hands and steady hearts. The mystery did not open further and did not close. It simply waited, and in that waiting it spoke one more silent line. Next step, next measure, next truth. Crew looked at one another in the half-light. They were tired and afraid and alive as they had never been. They had entered the living lock and learned why others had failed. They had touched the edge of a healer that could turn into a hunger. They had earned the right to choose again. Arlen lifted his lamp, and the darkness did not retreat. But it did not advance. It accepted the light and held it like a small star. Cupped in a giant hand, the way forward waited, the price waited, the answer waited, and the humans, stubborn and gentle, prepared to pay in courage rather than in pride. You said, the seam in the far wall waited like a mouth holding its breath. The glow inside the chamber dimmed to a gentle dusk. The humans stood in silence, each heartbeat loud in the quiet air. Captain Arlen looked at his crew, his gray eyes calm but sharp. They were tired, marked by fear, yet none of them stepped. Back, Mira tightened her grip on the lamp, its beam shaking in her hand. Hari touched the strings of his instrument, but did not play. Lena watched the faint lines of energy that still pulsed along the walls. Tomas shifted his pack and prepared in case danger cut deep. The air from the seam was cold. It carried the smell of water and stone buried for ages. It also carried something else, something that touched the mind more than the nose. A quiet weight that pressed like a hand on the chest. Forward, Arlen said softly. Not a command shouted, not a plea whispered, only a truth spoken. The crew moved in one by one, their steps slow, their breaths even. The seam widened enough to accept them, and then closed behind them with a sigh. The sound was soft, but in their hearts it felt final. They entered a passage long and narrow. The floor sloped downward, smooth as water-worn stone. The walls shone with faint veins of silver and blue. They pulsed like blood through a body. Every few steps the veins flickered, and each flicker made the crew feel a memory stir. Mira remembered her first day under Earth's sky with books in her arms. Lena remembered the cry of a newborn she once saved. Hari remembered his father's rough voice, teaching him a song. Tomas remembered a friend lost to war. Arlen remembered silence after battle when no voices were left. The passage was not showing them lies. It was reading their truths. They reached a wide chamber shaped like a dome. The ceiling rose high above, lost in shadows. The floor curved down to a circle pool that glowed from within. The glow was not blue, not silver, but soft white. It was the color of a candle flame stretched into water. The air was cooler here, heavy and waiting. On the far side of the pool stood a column taller than a man. It was not stone, not metal, not flesh. It shifted between all three as if it could not decide what it was. Symbols ran up its sides. Not carved, not painted, they flowed like living. Veins of fire that did not burn. At the top of the column rested a sphere, clear as glass, Inside the sphere moved a slow swirl of light. It looked alive, but not like any life they had seen. The crew stopped at the edge of the pool. The surface was too still, too perfect. Yet faint shapes moved far below, as if something vast slept there. The tone from the water rose again, low and deep. It touched their bones and reminded them of warnings: do not wake what sleeps in water. Arlen kept his eyes on the column. It is waiting, he said. Myra raised her lamp higher. The symbols on the column flared brighter as if answering. And then the voice came. Not sound, not words, but meaning. Clearer than before, stronger than before. At last, the measure fits. The humans froze. The meaning pressed into their minds. With calm weight, not hostile, not kind, only vast, the sphere atop the column swirled faster, and images poured into their thoughts. They saw a race long gone, beings of light and bone. They were old, older than Earth, older than the desert stars. They built towers of white. They healed with thought. They shaped worlds, but pride crept into them like rot. They created hungers they could not tame, machines that ate more than they gave, weapons that drank light and left only shadows. So they built prisons. The black wall was one such prison, the sealed orifice was the lock. They tried to hold the hunger inside, but their own people fought. Some wanted to release it for power. Wars broke, blood spilled, towers fell. In the end, they sealed their creation. But the lock required a pair, not their own kind, not their own blood. Another life, another measure. Something different but balanced. They searched the stars. They sent messages. World after world failed. The bones in the first chamber were proof. Until now, the sphere glowed brighter. Only your kind carries the missing half, the voice said. Only human life fits the seal. Mira's knees trembled. Her lips formed a whisper. It chose us, Lena's face was pale. It is not only choosing, she said. It is binding. It wants us tied to this place. The sphere swirled faster. I am the guardian. I am the record. I am the last mind of those who built. I cannot open. I cannot close. I only wait for the hand that fits. Now the hand has come. The crew felt the weight of choice press on them. The presence was not begging. It was not threatening. It simply stated, the gate beyond holds a healer or a hunger. Release it and worlds may rise. Release it and worlds may fall. I cannot tell which. I was made to lock, not to judge. Judgment is yours, humans. The water below rippled for the first time. Dark shapes turned like giants in sleep. The tone grew louder until their teeth ached. Arlen raised his hand, and the sound eased. The presence inside the sphere watched him, though it had no eyes. You ask us to choose, Arlen said. His voice was steady, his face carved of stone. We are small, but we are stubborn. He looked at his crew, their eyes on him. He saw their fear, their trust. We will not run, he said. We will not rush. We will learn before we act. The column pulsed with light. Wisdom is the rarest strength, the voice said. Hunger has always been easy. The chamber dimmed. The glow of the pool softened. The shapes beneath stilled again. The presence faded, but did not leave. It rested like a watcher behind glass, waiting for the next choice. The crew stood together, silent but alive. Myra clutched her notes to her chest. Hari lowered his instrument. His fingers shaking, Lena leaned against the wall to steady her legs. Tomas touched the floor in silence, thanks that they had not woken the deep. Arlen lowered his hand, his gray eyes colder than steel. The next step will break us or bind us, he said. But it will not be ignored. Behind them, far outside, the desert shook. The alien camps screamed. Weapons fired at shadows. Ships descended from the skies, drawn by the glow that had risen. The black wall flared like a storm lantern. The sealed circle pulsed so bright, the sand turned white. The prison was awake, and the galaxy had heard. The desert shook like a drum beneath. A giant hand. Above the camps, the sky filled with ships, some old and scarred, some bright and proud. Their engines wrote angry lines across the air. Their shadows cut the sand into shards. The black wall burned from within like stormlight trapped in glass. The sealed circle pulsed a warning ring, slow and cold, stay back or be broken. Inside the heart of the structure, the humans stood before the second gate. The seam breathed like a living mouth holding a secret. The column behind them glowed with a steady core, the sphere swirling like a patient eye, the pool far back kept. Its dark dream, the water sleeping with a heavy mind, Captain Arlen felt the weight of many lives pressing on his shoulders. He did not bend, he did not rise. He stood level as a blade laid flat. Mira checked her lamp, and her notes, though, both, felt small. Lena watched the thin wave of energy in the air, smooth as a clear pulse. Hari held his instrument close, fingers ready but calm. Tomas tightened the straps on his pack, his eyes soft and steady. They did not speak, because silence carried better. In a place that could listen, the voice without words returned, gentle and vast. Judgment is yours, humans. Gate 2 opens to a healer or a hunger. Your measure decides the face that wakes. Outside, a blast shook dust from the chamber ceiling. A new faction had landed with banners of black fire. Their message spread in sharp waves through the camps. Open the door, or we tear the desert apart. The insectoid commander answered with a barked order and a line of guns. The reptilian chief hissed for charges. The crystal elder begged for restraint. Fear grew, pride burned, hope thinned like old silk. Arlen looked into the seam where a soft night waited. He thought of Earth, of small green places, of quiet kitchens after storms. He thought of the bones in the first chamber, patient as moons. He thought of the message burned into the foundation. If you open without wisdom, you free a hunger. If you open with wisdom, you free a healer. Mira whispered in a voice the room could carry. We can open slowly, one breath at a time. We can. Read the response. We can stop if the wave turns sharp. Lena nodded, her hands folded to keep courage from spilling. The room reads motive. The lock drinks intent. If we move with greed, it will taste greed. If we move with care, it may taste care. Hari raised a soft note, a single line like a small river in dark stone. Tomes spoke the names of the dead. Again, a thread of respect that tied the living to the quiet watchers. The column brightened, the sphere swirled, pair ready, the voice said, price pending. The words entered them like a slow knife that did not cut flesh, but cut certainty. Price, Mira whispered. The sound barely a breath. What price, Tomas? Asked without a question shape, because even questions could sound like demands here, to open the healer's path. The lock must bind to a living will that carries no hunger. One of you must stand as counterweight, not for a moment, but for as long as the door remains open. Lena closed her eyes for one heartbeat, then opened them clear. It needs a keeper. A human mind as the second half of the measure, she said. Mira felt cold rise up her spine like a slow tide. It needs someone to stay, she said. Hari bowed his head, his hands still. Tomas breathed out through his nose, a soldier measuring. A field he did not choose. Arlen did not look away from the seam. He had known from the first step that some doors take a toll at the threshold. Outside, a violent tremor shook the wall. A lance of hard light struck the black surface and bounced like a stone off water. The sealed circle flashed white, and a ring of force rolled outward. It knocked towers flat and turned banners to ash. Without touching flesh, a warning that did not maim, because the lock still trusted the humans inside. But trust thinned when fear hammered at the glass. The insectoid commander shouted that the humans were stealing a weapon. The reptilian chief screamed that the humans were hiding a treasure. The new Black Fire faction prepared a deep charge that could crack hills. A crystal elder wept and sang an old song that begged for mercy from stars that no longer answered. Arlen turned to his crew. "I will take the weight," he said. His voice did not break. It did not rise. It carried like a simple truth across water. Myra stepped forward at once, the lamp trembling. "No," she said, her words small but made of iron. "You are the hand that steadies us. If you vanish into the lock, we lose the spine. Let me stand. I am the one it first answered. I am thee." Rhythm it learned. Lena shook her head, calm and fierce. "I have held the pulses. I have the cleanest measure. My hunger is small. I want to learn and heal, not to rule. Let me be the counterweight." Hari raised the instrument and spoke like a child and a sage at once. "A keeper must carry a song. I can be the tune the door leans on. I can hold it with breath and note. I can stay." Thomas smiled with tired kindness. "I have stood at doors many times. I know how to be last out. I know how to be the one who holds the line. Let me be the hinge." Arlen listened. He saw truth in each offer. He saw love and courage. He also saw the shapes of their futures if they lived. Myra would map 100 mysteries. Lena would save 1,000 small lives. Hari would teach songs to children who had never seen Earth. Tomas would make sure those children had quiet nights. Arlen carried a different shape, a shape made of decisions that pulled weight from others. He turned back to the column, his gray eyes steady. "The price will be mine," he said. He did not look for permission. He gave thanks with his gaze and let it go. The sphere tightened its slow swirl. Measure scanned. The voice said, "Hunger found, hunger named, hunger released." Arlen felt heat in his chest. Not burning, not pain. A small knot loosened, a knot of old anger, of old grief, of old pride. He had not known it was still tied. He let it drift away like ash over a night sea. Mira reached for his arm, her hand stopping a finger short, because touch had rules here. "Captain," she said, her voice thin, "if you go too far, you may not come back." Arlen gave her a look that said everything and asked nothing. He turned to the seam, to the second gate, to the dark that was not empty, open to the healer. He said, each word a stone in a clear path, "We carry no hunger." Hari set the soft tune in motion, a circle of notes walking in step with quiet hearts. Lena pressed her palm to the wall, a nurse and a witness. Tomas spoke the names of the dead again. A rope thrown across a deep place. Mira stood a half step back, counting the pulses, watching for any turn toward sharpness. The column glowed. The double strand along the walls turned like a slow wheel. The seam widened. The air flowed like a cold river past warm hands outside. The Black Fire faction rolled their deep charge into place. They set the timer. They carved words in their hearts to excuse the cost. The insectoid commander raised his weapon line. The reptilian chief hissed laughter at the coming rake. The crystal elder screamed one last plea that fell like rain on iron. Inside, a light rose from the scene, not white, not blue, a soft gold like dawn held in a bowl. It touched Arlen's chest and paused as if asking. He did not push. He did not pull. He allowed. The light slid through him like a river that left. No wound. He felt himself pour forward without moving. He felt a bridge lay down from his mind to a shore older than the desert. The sphere's voice came gentle and sure. Counterweight accepted, gate 2 opening. The chamber brightened without glare. The air smelled of rain and clean iron. A low tone rose, not from the pool, but from the seam. It shook their teeth and healed their fear at the same time. Mira saw the double strand flare bright and then settle into a steady glow. Lena's band drew a perfect wave. Smooth as a child's sleep, Hari's tune found a second voice, the room singing with him like a friend. Tomas let one tear run down, because the air had that taste of fields after. A storm passes. Then the ground jumped. The deep charge outside lit the sand like a false sunrise. The shock wave hit the black wall, and the wall answered. A ring of force rolled outward again. But now it carried more than warning. It carried a choice. Anything shaped by hunger would break. Anything shaped by fear would bend and lie still. Anything shaped by care would be spared. Towers of greed folded like paper. Weapons of hate turned to dust. Hands raised in prayer did not bruise. Eyes closed in. Mercy did not tear. The camps fell quiet under a law older than pride. The seam flared wide for one breath. Arlen stepped through without his body moving. The bridge inside him carried him where feet could not go. Myra cried out a soft sound that had no word. Lena reached with her heart, because fingers could not touch what he had become. Hari's tune trembled, and then steadied like a hand finding a friend in the dark. Tomas stood at the entry like a door carved from patience. The second gate revealed a chamber beyond. They could not see it fully, only the edge of a vast shape. It was not a machine, not a beast, not a god. It was a weave of light and water, and thought. It turned as if tasting the air after a long sleep. A new voice entered the room. Not the guardian, something deeper. Pair complete, it said, healer primed, hunger bound, balance fragile. Mira's lamp flickered. Not from failure, from respect. Lena's knees weakened. She held the wall to stay upright. Hari played the smallest note he knew, just one breath. Tomas set his feet and looked into the light without flinching. Arlen's body stood still at the threshold, but his mind stood inside the weave. He felt threads touching him, reading him, asking him to hold. He held. He did not command. He did not plead. He simply held. Outside, dust fell like gentle snow. The deep charge lay in pieces that looked ashamed of themselves. The alien armies stood stunned in a silence they had not known for years. The insectoid commander dropped his gun because it no longer remembered how to be a weapon. The reptilian chief stared at his broken devices and tasted his own fear as if for the first time. The crystal elder wept bright tears that cut new lines in the sand like tiny rivers. Inside, the healer moved one thread toward the world. It touched the air, and the air grew sweet. It touched the floor, and the floor remembered. Spring, it touched a human heart, and that heart forgot an old bruise. Then the weave paused. The guardian spoke in a low tide of meaning. Third presence detected. The pool behind them whispered. A shadow rolled under the dark surface. Slow and hungry. They had not woken it, but the tremors had fed it dreams. It turned once, heavy as a mountain in sleep. The tone from the water rose like a threat, testing its teeth. Do not wake what sleeps in water, the walls had warned. But the world does not always honor warnings. Mira's voice was a thin wire that did not snap. Captain, the healer needs time. The hunger smells the door. Lena's hands moved with clean grace, shutting down every small thing that could rattle the room. Hari shifted the tune to a lower path, a lullaby for deep stone. Tomas faced the pool and stood like a wall. Arlen held harder, not with force, with steadiness. He made his mind a harbor where the healer could rest and set one more anchor. The guardian spoke again, calm as a clock. If the hunger wakes now, the balance fails. If the healer withdraws now, the balance fails. Choice remains. But time thins outside. Leaders found their voices and began to argue in new tones. Some begged the humans to share the healer. Some promised peace. Some promised chains wrapped in pretty words. The wall ignored them. It listened only to the pair inside. It listened to a stubborn captain with a clean measure. It listened to a team that held him like hands under a bridge. Arlen felt edges of himself fade into the weave. He did not fear. He did not hold his name too tight. He gave the healer shape by giving it patience. He gave the gate strength by refusing pride. He whispered with no sound. A sentence only a room could hear. Stay with them, not with me. The healer answered with a warmth that did not burn. It set one more anchor in the chamber air. A gentle ring rolled outward. Too soft for panic to notice, it slid through stone and skin and sky. In the camps outside, a wounded child's fever broke. A cracked cistern cleared of poison. 2 enemies lowered their hands, without knowing why. A small bird rose from the dust and found its song. The pool rolled again, nearer this time. The hunger tasted the ring and liked it in the wrong way. It turned toward the seam like a sleeper reaching for fire. Hari's lullaby deepened. Lena's steady hands made the chamber quiet. Tomas took one step forward and spoke to the dark in a soldier's voice made of respect. "Sleep, old thing," he said. "We are working." For a breath the water stilled. Then a hairline crack skittered along the pool's edge. Not breaking, not yet. Only a promise that the next tremor could be the last. The guardian dimmed to a narrow glow. "Balance holds by a thread," it said. "The counterweight can tighten or break." Mira looked at Arlen's still body and at the light beyond the seam. She understood the shape of the price more clearly now. If he tightened, he would not return, not in any way she knew. If he loosened, the healer would slip, the hunger would wake. She swallowed the stone in her throat and spoke a simple line. "We are with you all the way." Arlen did not answer with words. He answered by standing more still, by breathing more gently. He made a choice and let it root. Outside, the sun slid behind a veil of thin cloud, as if the sky itself wished to soften the light. Inside, the scene shone like a horizon between storm and spring. The healer leaned forward. The hunger stirred. The thread of balance sang. The chamber did not open further and did not close. The decision did not end and did not break. It stretched into a line they would have to walk for longer than a single breath. The humans stood at the lip of the second gate with open hands and steady hearts. The galaxy pressed its ear to the glass. Hungry for an answer, the guardian held the count. Calm and patient, pair sustained, it said. Balance alive, it said. Next measure pending, it said. And the story, like the scene, held its breath and waited for dawn, for courage, for the weight of one more gentle step